our nation's on its way to hell as if it's ever been in heaven in the first place. It's time to redeem the time. Hey.
So what do you do to raise awareness about abortion?
People should be educated, first of all, about just sexual awareness and knowing how to protect themselves so they don't.
Well, so check this out. Like, we were at a high school in Norman the other day, and I actually heard that answer a lot, that we actually just need like awareness about like sexual education. And so there's a group of about 30 students around me, and this girl was telling me this. I said, students, let me get your attention. I was like, how many of you know that if you have sex, sometimes a baby is created? They all knew it. I said, how many of you know that you can take measures like condoms and birth control to prevent pregnancy? They all knew that. And I said, you also all know that sometimes those methods fail and a baby is created anyways. They all knew that. So like, education is not actually the problem.
Why don't we get taught to be safe and to maybe not get pregnant?
Is anybody confused here about having sex, that it creates children? Does anybody not know? Does anybody not know that birth control sometimes fails?
Oh, how is it?
Hold on.
What we do with our body.
No. She's saying education about birth control is the answer. I'm asking you, is anybody not educated about birth control? Is anybody confused about what sex produces? No. We are perfectly educated in this culture to know that having sex produces children, and that birth control sometimes stops it, sometimes doesn't. So educating about birth control is not the answer. Telling people not to murder other people and place their faith in Jesus Christ is the answer. Like, everybody knows that having sex, this is my 14-year-old, he knows that if you have sex, that a baby's created. I don't think there's anybody on this campus that doesn't know that. You?
Well, I mean, I agree. I'm anti-abortion.
Okay.
But I don't think that scare tactics is a way of going about it. And I do applaud you because you do seem very knowledgeable.
Well, why do you think these are scare tactics?
This is the very definition of scare tactics.
Mine. So like the abolitionists of slavery back 150 years ago, right, in the 1830s, they began like agitating their culture with the truth of slavery. So they would like show slave ship diagrams, how they were packed like sardines and they were tortured and abused on those slave ships. Some of them were thrown over for food for sharks. Like, I don't know if you've seen in your history books, like in high school and middle school, they would show like the back of the slave was whipped and scarred. They would show those kinds of images. And they would show like auction block scenes where like the white man had the woman by the arm and had her baby by his leg, and he was like selling the baby down the river and like separating families. They had to bring that reality and the barbarism of slavery before the watching world, before the public eye. Same with Nazi Germany, right? Like, all the Christians and the good people of Germany didn't actually know what was going on in the concentration camps. Some of them kind of had a clue, but they're like, well, I'm not going to do anything about it. After the Allies came in, you know what they did? They marched them through the concentration camps to look at what they ignored, and they were floored. And so, do you think that was wrong for them to do that? Make them look at the atrocity that they closed their eyes to?
No.
Was it wrong for the abolitionists of slavery to show the barbarism of slavery? So then, if those weren't scare tactics, if that's not wrong, why would this be wrong? Because, see, the reason I think that you think it's wrong or that it's different is because you've actually closed your eyes to the atrocity that we're living through. Like, and we think that we're like, no, we're not like Nazi Germany. We're not like antebellum America, because it's all done behind closed doors. It's all done under the guise of healthcare and women's rights and reproductive justice. And so we've sanitized it. We've cleaned it up, and we do it in the dark where nobody knows. See, the coat hanger thing, that's kind of a myth that's been blown way out of proportion.
Well, still, but I mean, I've heard terrible things. I've heard of women douching with bleach in an attempt to get rid of a baby, and
so
that's the sole reason I'm against it.
So do you agree that abortion's murder, like it murders a human being? Okay, so like, do we think that, are you saying that we should make murder legal, or do you think we should outlaw abortion?
I think that until the time when everybody has all the information, it should be legal.
Okay, so you're pro-life, but you think it should be legal
Yes.
Until, like, how much information, how many people have to have it, how can you measure that?
You can. And
Do you think that what we're doing is educational?
to some extent.
Because this is
I believe-
important information for people to have, right?
I believe it'd be more educational if there was more than just pictures of dead babies. But
So,
I
like,
guess
what
to some
what would you
extent.
suggest?
I would suggest things that have more like statistics and different like options for people, like knowledge maybe about the adoption process, things like that.
Yeah. Well, so we have a website on here, abolishmentabortion.com. All that kind of information is on there. So that's why I gave you a card. That's why I gave her a card. I want you guys to be able to check all that out. I want to go back to one other thing. You said that you think murder should be legal until people fully realize what it is. Now, say tomorrow. Let's say tomorrow that we woke up and rape was legal. Okay. Well, let me just finish the analogy. Say rape was legal, and there was like this cultural blindness to it, and we all thought, no, that's good stuff, and like people were miseducated about rape. And say we were having the same conversation, would you be like, well, I think rape should remain legal until people know what it is?
Well, let's not blur the topic. We're talking about abortion, not rape.
Which you agreed is murder, right?
Yes, I do
So,
agree it's murder.
Do you think murder's worse than rape?
Yes.
Okay, so why am I blurring the topic? Am I making it, what if anything, I'm making it like less, like not as
Well,
bad?
I'm just like mostly pro information. I think that there should be more information out there, more resources to help people.
I'm 100% with you there. There should be as much information as we can give, but do you think I have given more information to people right now than you have given about abortion in the last week, say?
Yes. But
In the
I
last
don't-
month?
Yes.
last
but
year?
I still don't think this is the way to go about it.
Okay, but let's not lose sight of the fact that it is murder. Like, it's no different than if I turned and killed him right now. And if I turned and killed him right now, I don't think you would think that anybody out here would overreact in their reaction to my killing him, right? Like, have you ever heard of Emmett Till?
No.
Okay, Emmett Till was a young after to his mom. They said, you're gonna have a closed casket funeral. She's like, no, I'm gonna let everybody see what they did to my baby boy. And a journalist came out of there, a photojournalist, took pictures, put it in the paper. Rosa Parks saw that, and she didn't move from her seat on the bus the next week. That was one of the incidents showing the reality of what racism did in the South and what racism did in general that sparked the civil rights movement. So, like, you couldn't say that was like an overreaction on his mom's part to show what they did. You can like Google his image and you can find it on, and you know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't an overreaction, was it? Do you think that racism, like segregation, should have remained illegal until people could really understand that black people were equal to white people?
No.
Or should we have like gone to the streets and done whatever we could short of like violence to like educate the culture, right? And so that's what we're doing. So if you wouldn't stand for 1 second of rape being legal, why would you stand for 1 second of the murder of innocent children being legal? Do you see where there's like a disconnect in the way you're thinking?
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you would be, what will you do differently? Is there anything you will do differently? There's trivial things that we all do in our lives that aren't very important. But while we're doing those things, if we're also neglecting something that's very important, especially important to God, like, we should probably give those things up and do something different if the seriousness of what's going on demands our attention. And I think the seriousness of this, I mean, just look at that picture. It's serious, demands our attention, demands the attention of the people of God. Are you a Christian? No? What, do you have a religion or?
I was brought up Christian, but I'm not anymore.
Okay, what do you believe now?
I'm an atheist.
You're an atheist? Okay. So, like, you think abortion is wrong, right? How do you know it's wrong? Like, what's your foundation for knowing it's right or wrong?
Well, based on what will keep society running smoothly and
So like if slavery had kept society running smoothly, we'd be like, yeah, slavery's good.
Not being a dick. Things that are like don't make you a dick are the right things to do usually.
Can you define being a dick? Like
things that hurt other people, especially if it's for your own gain.
But, so like I would just ask you the same question. How do you know hurting other people for your own gain is bad, like wrong?
How do I know?
Like, or like raping children?
Because that is the mindset our society
Well, I'm just
lives
asking
in.
you, because at one time all of our society thought enslaving her was good. Was it good or bad?
It was bad.
It was bad, right? Even if 100% of the people thought it was good, still bad, right? If opinion can't make something actually wrong, and if law can't do it, what is it?
My decision on is science and just the knowledge of how the human body works.
But see, science, that's actually a fallacy. Science cannot tell us what is and is not wrong.
No,
it can only tell us what is, right?
It takes human ethics and higher critical thinking to do that.
So, but that kind of begs the question, because I'm saying, like, where do human ethics come from? What's their foundation? How do we know that, like, hurting people is better than, helping people is better than hurting people?
The amygdala.
What's that?
The amygdala, the part of our brains that wants us to live nicely together as a society rather than kill each other and end the species.
So it's just like a function of biology?
Yes.
But it's not actually right or wrong?
It's not, it's right or wrong because of society and of the rules that we have imposed and created.
Well, no, but we've already established that can't be the case because society had established rules that it was right to enslave her.
But that was wrong. It wasn't.
I know, but you just appealed to society's rules and the culture to say it was right. In this today.
I mean, I'm not saying society is always right, but
How can you know when it's right and when it's wrong? If society is the determining factor of what's right.
Well, I believe in the process of the law. I really do.
Well, I know, but the process of the law said I could own her. Right? So the law cannot be that case. Hitler, what he did, he made the law. He threw 6 million Jews into ovens, right? So it couldn't be the Nazi law that like made it right, correct? So how do we know? It can't be law, can't be opinion, can't be the majority of society. But unless you're willing to say, well, no, it was right until 51% of society said it was wrong, then it became wrong. But I don't think you're willing to say that. You know why you're not?
Why?
Why I believe? Because you're made in God's image. He has created you as an image bearer of God. That means you reflect His nature and His glory. You have an intellect. You're able to reason and use logic, and He's put His law into your heart. So like your worldview would actually could not even differentiate between me like having a friendly conversation or me like grabbing you by the head and like putting you in a headlock and being like, you must believe, or doing something even worse, you know what I'm saying? Or like it can't differentiate between me like being a loving husband, she's pregnant right now, or between me like throwing her on the ground and kicking her in the stomach. Like your worldview could not differentiate between those. They just are things that are, but neither like kicking in the stomach or not kicking in the stomach is the same thing. Like Romans 1 says that we can look at the creation and God has displayed His glory and His power. And so we look at a creation, whether it's the cell in your body, that if you've looked at it under a microscope and you've studied the cell, very intricate. Like
I agree. The universe had to come from somewhere, but
it had to come from somewhere or something with intelligence. Because when we, like, if you look at this card with the information, you know, an intelligent being that can think, that has a mind, had to put that together that makes sense. And so if you look at your DNA, there's tons of information that can fill entire volumes of libraries full of encyclopedias. Well, information, if we look at something as simple as a card, right? Very simple compared to the information in your DNA strand, right? But why would we look at this and be like, well, this little simple thing had to have a designer, but the information that's much more complex just in my body, not to mention the whole universe, didn't? Do you see how like that takes a lot of faith? And you think like blind chance and forces can create like information-rich universes? Like just through random chaos? So like,
given enough time.
So like if, say like I had the time to do it and I just like took dynamite and blew that building up like for 1,000,000 years, you think one day it would like form itself back into a brick and mortar with windows and stuff?
No, because it doesn't have any sort of thing organizing it like a neural.
Well, neither does the universe. It was just an expansion of something that had to come from somewhere also. It was totally random, all chaos, no order or anything like that. And so you're saying complete order came out of total disorder and chaos,
Yes.
which would be the same as saying I could just blow that place up for 1,000,000 years straight and finally something orderly would come from it. You see how much faith that takes to believe that? Now, it takes a lot less faith to believe that that building had like bricklayers that came out and like laid the brick row by row, had, you know, people that put the windows in, designed the windows, put the carpet in, whatever it looks like inside, all the stuff that goes into making that building, which is like infinitely more simple than what we see in this universe. Can I kind of change topics? What is it that caused you, because you said you were raised as a Christian, what caused you to walk away from that? Or to disbelieve?
I mean, it's kind of a complicated matter. Initially, it was a family tragedy that made me lose my faith, but then once I did some more research and I started thinking about it more, I couldn't find it in myself to believe anymore.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna lie, that was one of the most traumatic things I ever went through, but I think I'm better off now because of it.
Do you mind if I ask what it was, or is it just too personal? Or?
I'd rather not talk about it.
Okay. So to kind of stay in the abstract then, obviously bad things happen to people, right? All the time. And this is a little different because it's something I brought on myself, but like, I almost went to prison for selling drugs. And I was like a dirtbag, cheated. That was my wife there, but before we were married, I cheated on her all the time. Slept around with different women, did drugs, sold drugs, actually got busted selling drugs when he was 3 and he was in the back of my car. I get arrested, I go to jail. I'm looking at 5 years in prison, okay? At that moment, I'm like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. I turned back to God. I said, God, like, I don't understand why this is happening to me, but I brought it upon myself. I turned from my sin and I turned to you. And so the worst day of my life was actually the best day of my life because it was a turning point for me. It built character in me. It changed who I was. And so like, I know that's not the same as like losing somebody you love or, you know, something really bad happening. But, you know, in your worldview, evil doesn't exist, like actual evil. It's just kind of opinionated evil. And so not only does evil not exist, but what you like have an opinion is evil is actually totally purposeless as well. So like, say you lost a loved one, like it's just what happens when matter bumps into matter and you just live in a chaotic world without meaning or purpose. So like actually like the love that you had for that person, the life that they lived, and their death was just what happens in a universe that doesn't matter at all, that has no meaning or purpose. So like, I can look at death, I don't have to fear death. I don't have to fear death for my loved ones who know Jesus Christ. And I can also look at their death and say, God had a purpose in that. Maybe it's to bring somebody else who doesn't know Jesus to know him so that they can have eternal life. Maybe it was to like strengthen my faith so that I could walk more faithfully with him. Maybe it's so that I could comfort somebody else that had somebody die. And I can say, look, I know my loved one's in heaven with Christ and he's suffering no more. And I could comfort this other person who's maybe losing a loved one or has just lost a loved one. So I think that evil things happen and tragedies happen in this world, but I don't think that they're just the same as like me dropping the card on the ground, or like, I don't think like losing a loved one's any different than like having a baby. But your worldview, you would have to think that, because evil doesn't actually exist, good and bad don't actually exist, and there's no purpose for anything. Do you see how hopeless of a worldview you live in?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of shitty. I agree, and that's why I think that religion is a very good thing for lots of people.
But see, it's not actually good if good doesn't exist. You see what I'm saying? It's all just like a scam.
Well, I think that for a lot of people, they derive pleasure and meaning from things other than the knowledge of their security of their soul and their eternal life with Christ.
But meaning doesn't actually exist. There's no such thing as meaning because we just live in a chaotic accident.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
So
not,
you're saying
but
they derive meaning, but there's not
we
actually
create it
meaning.
for ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I need to go, but it was a pleasure meeting you.
What was your name?
Sarah.
Sarah, I'll shake you with this hand since I sneezed into this one.
Okay.
All right, Sarah, I'm Toby.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You're very knowledgeable, and I appreciate your argumentation.
I would encourage you to just like examine your heart and ask God, if you're real, reveal yourself to me. Because I don't want to live a purposeless, meaningless life anymore. I want to know you, and if you're real, reveal yourself to me. And pick up your Bible and read it. Know Jesus. He can set you free. Take care, Sarah.